Hello and welcome to joining us. Welcome to HAI at Work. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar. Today we're going to be saluting the 2021 Salute to Excellence Humanitarian Service Award recipients. And we'll get a fire season update from representatives of Erickson Aviation and from CAL FIRE. We'll get started in about a minute. We'd just like to give people time to join in at the last possible minute. Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started. Appreciate you joining us today. Hopefully we'll be able to stay with you this afternoon here in the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C. area. We are experiencing rather severe weather at the moment. We don't generally lose power, but we never know if we're going to lose power or internet, so we'll keep our fingers crossed here. Today's topic is working with fire, honoring the Salute to Excellence Humanitarian Service Award recipients, the California Army National Guard 40th Combat Aviation Brigade. They unfortunately are deployed and will not be able to join us. We're also going to get updates from Erickson Aircrane. Unfortunately, they are also working today and not going to be able to join us. We do have a representative from CAL FIRE who will join us live and be able to answer questions, and so we're looking for an update on their fire season right now as well. Let's go ahead and get started with our questions or speakers today. There we go. Jim Viola, the President and CEO of HAI, will join us. And Jake Scholand, who is the Deputy Chief Tactical Air Operations for CAL FIRE. We do appreciate his joining us this afternoon. This is an interactive webinar. Unfortunately, we won't be able to take questions regarding the Salute Award or regarding Erickson Aviation's programs, but we will accept questions for CAL FIRE once we get into that segment. Please use the question module, not the chat module, that is at either the bottom of your computer screen or on the side of your computer screen to submit the questions. We do pay more attention to those because we want to make sure we get to your questions when you ask them. We will do our best to answer every question during the course of the webinar. If we do run out of time, we will do our best to get a response to you after the fact. As always, these webinars are being recorded. We do try to make the videos available to all participants as soon as possible after the webinar is over. We will try to get it posted to our website either tomorrow or possibly Tuesday. We do have a holiday weekend here in the United States, and we'll try to get to that as fast as possible. I'd now like to introduce Jim Viola, the President and CEO of HAI, to join us for his introduction.
Hey, thanks, Dan. Appreciate that. Yeah, as you talked about the hot weather here in DC is just an example of a lot of the hot weather everywhere across the Northern Hemisphere. So we thought we would combine the release of one of our Salute to Excellence Award videos, and then, as you said, talk about the aerial firefighting at the same time. Today's Salute to Excellence Award video is for humanitarian service and acknowledging one of the most positive missions conducted by helicopter operators. You may recall we had a webinar last fall where we interviewed the pilots from the California Army National Guard. The pilots and their crews flew a Chinook and Black Hawk to rescue over 200 campers from a forest fire that had surrounded them in California's Sierra Nevada mountains. For their actions, the Army actually awarded them the Distinguished Flying Cross, and HAI subsequently awarded them the Humanitarian Service Award. So I offer my sincerest congratulations to these crews from the 40th Combat Aviation Brigade. They are currently deployed, and so we will not have them on today. It does not matter which side of the equator you work, fire season, it's always dramatic, and helicopter operators are often featured in the news. Whether we are fighting fire or rescuing people from floods, hurricanes, or other disasters, our rotorcraft community can be proud of the work we do and you do to support communities and your nations. Igor Sikorsky said it best many years ago: if you are in trouble anywhere in the world, an airplane can fly over you and drop flowers, but a helicopter can land and save your life. Obviously, helicopters do more than landing and saving lives, and I'm very proud of the work our rotorcraft operators conduct each and every day. Before we show the humanitarian service video, let me take a moment to also remind our pilots and maintenance personnel to be safe during these kinds of operations. It does not matter how big the disaster is that you're responding to. Please execute your mission safely. Get your rest, make sure you're eating right, and do not overextend yourself, your crew, or your aircraft. All too often, we lose crews and aircraft that are responding to accidents or disaster because they are just pushing too hard. Take the time to evaluate your risks. Take the time to ensure you are fully prepared and have planned for contingencies. There will always be a sense of urgency to respond immediately, but you will always have time to be safe as well. We will now have two videos to present to you this afternoon. The first is for the Salute to Excellence Humanitarian Service Award, as we have discussed. And the second is a briefing from Erickson Aviation on how their fire season is progressing here in the United States. Like everyone else involved in fighting fires, they are quite busy this time of year and could not fit into the webinar into their schedule. Fortunately, we were able to record a discussion that we'll play here. After the videos, we'll have a live briefing from Jake Soland from Cal Fire, who will update us on the fire season underway in California. So let's get started, Dan, and bring up that first video.
Okay, Jim, here we go.
Helicopter Association International proudly presents the Salute to Excellence Humanitarian Service Award, sponsored by Sikorsky. This award salutes a superior demonstration of the value of helicopters supporting those in need, either during a specific mission or throughout a period of time. The symbol for the California National Guard's 40th Combat Aviation Brigade is the Phoenix. On September 5, 2020, 2 helicopter crews from the brigade demonstrated why. By that evening, the rapidly growing creek fire in the Sierra Nevada forest had surrounded a large group of campers, hikers, and residents at the Mammoth Pool Reservoir, leaving no avenue for escape. Without the assets to reach the stranded people, the Madera County Sheriff's Office called for support from the California National Guard 40th Combat Aviation Brigade. The most deployed unit of the California National Guard, the 40th supports CAL FIRE during the state's ever-growing fire seasons with CH-47 Chinooks and UH-60 Black Hawk helicopters. 2 helicopter crews responded to the urgent evacuation. One CH-47 Chinook crew consisting of Pilot in Command Chief Warrant Officer 5 Joseph Rosamond, Pilot Chief Warrant Officer 2 Brady Laybaum, Flight Engineer Sergeant George Esquivel, and Flight Engineer Sergeant Cameron Powell, and one UH-60 Black Hawk crew, consisting of Pilot in Command Chief Warrant Officer 5 Kip Godding, Pilot Chief Warrant Officer 2 Irvin Hernandez, and Crew Chief Warrant Officer 1 Ji Xiong. The teams flew through the night and into the next morning to rescue as many people as possible. According to the crews, the flying conditions were horrific, even worse than those they had experienced in combat in Afghanistan and Iraq. High winds, intense fire, and dense smoke all contributed to the treacherous conditions and low visibility. The tight landing zone, a boat ramp on the edge of Mammoth Pool's reservoir, was surrounded by fire and smoke. Coupled with flight under night vision goggles, it was one of the most difficult missions the crews had ever faced. On one sortie, the CH-47 achieved maximum gross weight, making it very difficult to climb out over the rugged terrain. Similarly, the UH-60 crew at one point carried almost twice its normal passenger load. The constantly changing fire also forced the crews to find a different ingress route on each return, further complicating an already difficult situation. In the end, the crews completed 3 sorties each, rescuing a total of 242 people and a significant number of pets. The crew used all of their training on this mission, illustrating once again the strength, value, and bravery of our citizens in airborne public service. Please join the HAI Board of Directors in saluting the California National Guard 40th Combat Aviation Brigade, recipient of the 2021 Salute to Excellence Sikorsky Humanitarian Service Award.
Okay, there's no quick and easy way to transition into the second video, but I would like to offer my deepest congratulations to the 40th Combat Aviation Brigade for their amazing work. Not only did they receive this award from HAI, they also received the Distinguished Flying Cross from the US Army, which is obviously well deserved. And I will have this other video opened up in just a second. I think we're ready to go here. Okay, today we are joined by Chris Schultz, who is the Senior Vice President of Operations for Erickson Incorporated, and Brittany Black, who is the Senior Vice President of Sales, Marketing, and Business Development for Erickson. Both of you, welcome to HAI at Work. We appreciate having you here.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Dan.
it.
Hey, obviously Erickson is well known for firefighting, and it seems like this fire season here in the Northern Hemisphere is really progressing quickly this year. And so I know you guys are probably really active. How is the fire season going for Erickson so far? I understand you guys have some pretty extreme weather up in the Pacific Northwest right now.
Yeah, that's true. It's true, Dan. We're just coming out of some record-breaking temperatures really over the last few days around the Portland area. But our fire season is going well. We've spent the last few weeks getting aircraft on contracts early to meet our customers' needs, especially with the recent weather. This year, we're starting the season with more than 15 aircraft operating in support of fire operations globally, and we really don't expect that demand to decrease anytime in the future.
I hadn't thought about it until just now, but do your aircraft operate pretty much year round on fire season now, moving back and forth between the Northern Hemisphere and Southern Hemisphere?
Yep, we do.
Can you kind of give us an idea where you're working at the moment? Do you have anything international right now?
Yeah, you bet. So we're currently supporting agencies, obviously in North America, Europe, Asia, for the specific fire season. So we have aircraft in California, Oregon, Greece, Italy, and so on.
Okay, well, what sets the Erickson aircrane apart from other firefighting aircraft?
Well, we're obviously partial to the aircrane, but really, I love answering this question. So over the last 20 years, we have great teams and who have just continuously worked to improve the aircrane in support of firefighting missions. And that has been, I would say with a focus on safety, lower direct operating costs, increased reliability, availability, greater mission capability. And, we're really proud that's included more than 4,000 modifications to the airframe. More specific to aerial firefighting in the platform, we have the only helicopter that's purpose-built for this mission, right? Its mission has always been to lift heavy things and to do that efficiently. And water's a great example of that. So our fire tank and snorkel systems are really unparalleled, and their ability to allow operators to fill a tank quickly with water retardant. And if you pair that with our other features such as composite main rotor blades, which allows for an effective drop scenario from our skilled pilots, all working towards the ultimate goal of supporting fire managers as best as they can from the air. So, while we think our platform is ideal for aerial firefighting, I know Chris would probably agree that our personnel are key to our aircraft operating as its best.
Yeah, I think a tool is only as strong as the person that's using it. So to Brittany's point, our personnel are the key aspect of what we do in firefighting. We've got exceptionally experienced pilots and mechanics. And one of the things that we're really proud of is their coordination with the aircraft managers and the helitack managers as we're pursuing a fire and talking about how do we use our aircraft well, how do we coordinate our activities to bring the best value to the firefighting mission. And then we've also got this reach back capability where our people in the field are able to communicate what is so important to our customers and what would make it easier for them to perform the mission of fighting fires with our aircraft. And reaching back to our OEM and our Aero Systems group that is responsible for designing and building and then fielding those modifications that have really put the the hallmark of R&D and innovation into this aircraft type.
So it sounds like there's a much more complex system in place that supports this whole operation, because, you know, you see on the news, you know, the cranes go screaming across the TV screen, dropping hundreds of thousands of gallons of water at a time, and nobody stops to think about everything that goes on behind the scenes.
Exactly. It's a real ballet of making sure that all of those resources are coordinated with the ground personnel and the air assets, and we're doing the right job for the public and the people on the ground that are actually fighting the fires.
I will say that our audience is usually made up, there's usually quite a number of low-time pilots or students. There's also people that are international. If somebody wanted to come to work for Erickson, either as a pilot or as a mechanic or even in the support role, what advice would you give them?
Well, I think there's two things to think about. One would be check our website. We're always looking for pilots and mechanics that bring experience and new and innovative ideas to the way that we fight fires. But the other is, as people are trying to get qualified for this mission, there's a couple of things that we find are really important. And one is putting yourself in a position to get firefighting experience. And the second would be to try and get more experience in long line. And I think those two skill sets are transferable across aircraft types as you gain more experience working in that fire environment. And we can try to teach you the aircraft piece of it as you bring those other skill sets.
Okay. Is Erickson doing anything new with firefighting this year, or is it kind of a case of why change something that worked so well to begin with?
I'd say that this industry and this segment specifically is all about innovation and making sure that you're bringing new technology and ideas to the table. So we've announced a couple of innovative things that we're working on in the last couple of years. One of those is the industry is calling for night operations. We've seen a lot of agencies working towards that capability. And at Erickson, we've been doing night vision goggle operations in our Part 135 side of our business for over 20 years. So we've really partnered up our firefighting capabilities with the night vision goggle capabilities in the other parts of our business. And we're looking forward to bringing that into the firefighting space with the S-64. In addition to that, we announced the CMRB, which is our composite main rotor blade. We're installing those and starting to deploy them on a number of our aircraft that will be fighting fires this year. So we're looking forward to showcasing the performance that brings to our asset. And then on a strategic basis, we've got an R&D team that is announced and working through a number of innovations. Last year at HAI in 2020, that was a while back now, we announced our partnership with Sikorsky and the Matrix program, where we're going to have an advanced autopilot system that will bring additional capability to the aircraft, both manned and in some of those areas where maybe you wouldn't want a flight crew to take some of that risk.
Well, for the aircraft has been around for such a long time, but it just seems like it just keeps getting upgraded and upgraded and upgraded and just keeps becoming more and more capable. So that's a great system for the guys who are actually firefighting on the ground to be able to deploy to support them. So is there anything else you guys would like to add about how your fire season's going?
I think it's hot. It's going to be a busy one, and we're looking forward to supporting the public and the agencies that we're partnered with. And those that are flying out there with us, we continue to coordinate with them and make sure that we're providing the best service. So looking forward to it.
Okay, well, Brittany and Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm grateful that you were able to take time. I know Erickson's a busy company, and so thank you for taking the time to talk with us today.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, I would like to again thank the people from Erickson Aviation, both Brittany and Chris, for joining us today. I hope that we can get them on live in the future so that we can take questions from them during fire season stories or other work that they do. So now I'd like to invite Jake Scholand to go ahead and turn your camera on, and we can talk about what Cal Fire is doing right now. Jake, welcome to our HAI at Work webinar.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you doing?
It's going well today, Jake. I hope fire season is going safely for the folks at Cal Fire.
So far, so good. No injuries or bad accidents to report to date, and that's always a good thing.
That's a very good thing to hear. So grateful for that. I understand you have a presentation. Let's go ahead and have you start with that, and then we'll get into some of the questions.
Absolutely. I'm going to take your screen from you. All right, you got my screen up?
I don't see anything at the moment. It says you started screen sharing, but I don't see the image yet. Let's see here.
How about now?
There we go. You can see it now.
All right. Okay, as Dan mentioned, I'm Jake Schollen, and the Deputy Chief of Tactical Air Operations, and within CAL FIRE, aviation is supported really by two units. One is our Aviation Management Unit, which deals with the aircraft, the contracted pilots, the contracting for aircraft, carting, training. There's a safety side in aviation management, as well as the maintenance. And when you get over to the field application, in terms of utilizing the resource for the incidents that we support, that's where Tactical Air Operation comes in and trains the CAL FIRE personnel, works with our interagency partners on standardization, policy, procedure, things of that nature. So we oversee chemicals, the training of all the hoist and heli-tac and air attack base personnel, and as well as the UAS program. So far as what the season looks like for us right now, there's no surprise. We had a dry winter. We had a lot of fair amount of activity going on up in the Reading area. Just for some background, the Reading area generally gets around 35 to 36 inches of rain annually, and they only got 13 inches this past winter. And as you can see on this diagram for fire potential outlook, June through August, you can see that depicts that on this map. It's a little bit unusual, the north part of the state being as dry as it is. It's generally one of the wetter parts of the state, particularly on the coastal side of the Northwest California there. We've had a whole month of above average temperatures, winds normal to the higher side than the normal. Potential fire activity has been up. I'll show you some numbers here in a little bit that indicates that. The snowpack's pretty much gone, which has affected our field moisture now. It's a month and a half ahead of where it should be in terms of dryness. And then we're getting up in the high elevations is where we're starting to see some of those fires taken off. We've had a series of lightning fires go through the state this past few days, and we're still getting sleepers coming out of those as well. The lower elevations we're not as concerned with as in years past because we didn't have the water to grow the grass crop. And so typically when a fire starts, those fine flashy fuels are what carries the quickest and is able to get a fire's size develop rapidly and also bring it into those heavier fuel models. And because of the lack of rain and or sustained rain spaced out, we weren't able to get those grass crops, 2 or 3 times, sometimes even growing. And so we have a very light grass crop out there, which actually is favorable in terms of those small fuels carrying fire for us. On the right side, I just took a snapshot of the Central Sierra 1,000-hour fuel moisture, and this just indicates the dryness in those fuels. This is dead fuel, 3 inches in diameter or greater, and it can also be fuel that's 4 inches below the surface of the ground in the duff layer. And so the gray line indicates what the average is for that moisture. The red line indicates a critical average, and the blue line is where we're currently at now. And so as you can see in the Central Sierra, we're already got our biggest, largest fuels are already below critical stages in their moisture content. Going into September, there's really no changes. You can see on the state picture, the whole entire valley in the north gets coded out there in red, indicating that conditions are going to worsen. We also went red there in the Bay Area, in the Delta area. So we're going to expect to see more of the northeast winds occur, which generally tend to influence fire behavior for us. And we don't expect any outlook in terms of wetting rains or any type of weather that's really going to change the effects of this of the summer until we get into late fall right now. On the right side, I put the 1,000-hour fuel moisture in Mount Shasta, where we're having the activity. In Northern California, again, for the reference, the blue line is where we sit with the live fuel moisture, red line being critical for the North State. Statistically, for this year, from a period of January 1st to June 27th, you can see that we've had just over 3,500 fires for a total of 17,000 acres. Last year, at the same time, 2,875 fires for 21,000 acres. The 5-year average, this is just for Cal Fire, is generally around 2,300 fires and 28,000 acres. And if you combine the Forest Service with the Cal Fire statistics for this year, you'll get just over 4,100 fires and almost 32,000 in acres. And that was as of June 27th of this year. So it's kind of a typical trend that we've seen the last few years, in that each year we've seen more fires than the year before. For those are fires that start and are generally extinguished, but you see our acreage is down from last year, which is a good sign. That means that we're having a good initial attack, and we're catching those fires while they're small. The picture on the left is of the Scarface Fire a few years ago, and it's up again in that Mount Shasta area in Northern California. And that's what we call it's a fuel model G, which is basically a solid conifer stand. And the graph on the right is an energy release component, indicating really what it is. It's a composite fuel moisture graph is one way to use it. And it has both live fuel moisture and dead fuel moisture calibrated here. And what the energy release component tells us is what we can expect at the front and the shoulders of a fire as it's burning. And so again, the gray line is the average, the red line is the extreme side, or the maximum, and then you got the blue line where we're sitting currently today. And so this is really what indicates to us that we do need to maybe augment staffing or change how we're going to dispatch resources to an incident, or we're going to support them with personnel. And this changes throughout the state. This is not the only one. This is just for this general area up next to Mount Shasta. So as far as the fleet goes with Cal Fire, I just put some notes down at the bottom. On the right side is what we have pretty much year-round currently, 23 S2 air tankers. We have 17 air attack platforms. All but 2 of those are the OB-10 series of aircraft. The 2 others are King Airs that we use for training of air attacks. We still have our 12 Super Hueys, and we currently have 6 of our S-70Is transitioned in and operating within the agency. Number 7 is going to be showing up here in the next week or 2. For bases, Cal Fire has 13 air attack bases spread out across the state, 1 reload base, and then 10 hel attack bases. And the purpose of the hel attack bases, that's where the hel attack crews with the copters sit. And the primary reason we have those copters is to get those boots quickly transported to a fire so that firefighters can not be delayed in starting to contain and suppress a fire. On the left side, for 2021 augmentation aircraft, the department is looking at exclusive use contracts for up to 8 copters, 3 large air tankers, a VLAT if one is able to come available, and then maybe an Intel aircraft. So we have to wait till the July 1 budget, which has just happen, and they're actually in discussions on that today and tomorrow in securing the aircraft for our exclusive use this summer. There's also the ability to call when needed aircraft out there, whether it's fixed wing or rotary wing. I imagine those resources will be drawn down and consumed most of the summer. When you look at the California, we reference it as Region 5. When you look outside of California to the other regions in the country, they're already at what we call a PL level 4, 1's being the least activity, 5's being the most activity. And the fire activity out of California has already reached a PL 4 level. And so what that again tells us is that resources are a commodity and they're being consumed. So instead of the traditional, a fire starts in one area of the nation, it has a fire season, and as that one's ending, there's another part of the nation beginning, and it slowly revolves around, and California is a part of that clock, more or less. We're seeing that a lot of these areas on the western side of the country are all having fire seasons simultaneously. So therefore, a lot of the resources are being drawn down and requires a lot of personnel in the background to manage these incidents and allocate resources accordingly. As far as just some general program updates for the agency for fixed and rotor wing, the C-130 aircraft that we have 7 of them in total, and we're currently working with the Air Force and the Coast Guard on getting the maintenance completed on those and the tanks installed. And we're looking at the initial aircraft starting in the fall of 2022. We've opened up another air attack base at Fresno. It was a base that we staffed years ago, and it was cut about 10 to 12 years ago, possibly, maybe a little bit less now, but we've since put staffing back at that base this year in preparation for the C-130s coming off the line and going out into the field. There'll be 5 bases that will have C-130s supporting them, and then 2 will be remaining in the reserve fleet. We've had 4 heli-attack bases transition from the Huey into the S-70I. The 4th one was just completed a little over a week ago, and we're looking at doing the 5th one here towards the end of the month. So we'll end up with a total of 70 S-70Is here by the end of the month, and 5 heli-attack bases being transitioned out of the Huey and into the S-70I program. Night operations, we're doing both in rotor and fixed wing. The fixed wing's been mainly limited to night air attack capability, being able to put a resource up over a large geographic area, do some IR and some mapping, and give some report on conditions, situational awareness to the personnel on the ground that are experiencing those fires, particularly when there's in severe conditions of being wind driven and resource drawdown, getting that intel back into our operations centers so that better decisions can be made. For the rotor side, we haven't fully instituted any of our night operations yet. It's still in the preliminary phases. Currently, we have the instructors for that night transition in the S-70Is. It'll only be with those aircraft. And we're going to look at suppression operations from night hover fill, and it'll be for air rescue of our own. There's testing that'll be going on this year, this summer at night regarding the goggle use, the white phosphorus, and testing with those to see how things work out between the fire dynamics and also with the night. We're working with our cooperators as well that have experience in the southern region with the Hawk and fighting fire at night. So a lot to still do there. We have a requirement for our pilots to meet a 1 year and also an hour requirement for them to be in the Hawk prior to them transitioning into night operations. So typically our base has averaged 350 hours flight hours a year, and that gives a pilot around 175 hours of flight time in that year. So the pilots all need to accomplish more than 100 hours of flight time, and then also have that year behind their belt, and then they'll move into the night operations training program from there. And we have one of those helicopters here nearing that benchmark to enter into training. As far as the night operations go, though, it'll be intrinsic to the base of operations initially. So if an aircraft is assigned to a base, it could only do those night operations preliminary within their sphere of influence. If they were to fly out of that sphere of influence and have to, say, go from Northern California to Southern California, they would need to have basically a daytime period for them to go out and check hazards and familiarize themselves with the dip sites and the operations and whatnot before going into night operations in that one local area outside of their sphere of influence. And it has to be commensurate with the values at risk and the personnel at risk as well. We also have a SUS, an unmanned program that started this last year. It's at a crawl stage right now. We're looking at a crawl, walk, run implementation of the UAS program. Right now, we're focused mainly on deploying small UAS within the department. Specific to wildland right now, what the key takeaways are is they're being used for situational awareness, points, polygon type applications for mapping, and aerial ignition is something that we're probably going to get slowly into this summer with some of our cooperators and vendors. All of these things that our federal partners have been doing for some time. The aerial ignition, they've made a big leap in it last year. That's been a priority application for UAS to remove helicopters from that aerial ignition role, where we have that low and slow environment and the number of accidents you've seen over the years with fatalities included, sadly enough, is what's pushing the UAS air ignition program forward. And I know there was give me some questions on pilots and how to get jobs and things of that nature. So CAL FIRE, the copter pilots are CAL FIRE employees, and you can access the CAL FIRE careers website, and it will identify what those jobs are. It's known as a forestry fire pilot, and the basic requirements to apply for that and then be looked at on the application process is to have a commercial pilot's license, the class 2 medical, 2,500 hours pilot in charge, 500 hours in either mountain search and rescue or some type of lowland profile environment is what they're looking for. And then with the scale in of the Hawks lately, these are the minimum requirements. Any type of Hawk time or things of that nature would obviously help us as well. On the fixed wing side and the mechanics for all the aircraft, we go through our contract, DynCorp International, a minimum, and I put Jeff Cavara's email down there, and that's the best way to reach out if you want information regarding any of the pilots positions that are available through that contract. Again, that would be all the air tanker pilots, and then also the logistic pilots that they use to shuttle parts and people around as well. You can search DynCorp for their job criteria. You're going to come up with a long list. The one that's probably the most common that you'll see on there, easy enough, would be more of the mechanic stuff. But again, if you reach out to Jeff Cavara, he will be able to provide information for all the positions that DynCorp has specific to CAL FIRE. And Dan, that is it. So I'll let you go to questions.
Thank you, Jake. Appreciate that. Let's, before you, can we get you to bring your screen back up? I was just going to suggest that people do a screen capture, take a photo, use a pen and paper to write down those addresses. Maybe we could do that while we're starting to address some of the questions. You had mentioned during talking about where the aircraft are deployed about the sphere of influence. So it sounds like what you try to do is keep the aircraft assigned to a specific base until the need requires you move elsewhere. Is that correct? How does your deployment system work?
Correct. And if you want, after they do a screenshot, I can show you on a map what that looks like.
Sure. Okay. Well, let's give the viewers just another 10, 15 seconds. Get your cameras out, get your, alt print screen to capture it, something like that, do a snip. Whatever it might be, to make sure you can get those addresses. And then, sure, go ahead and show us, Jake. Let's see the map.
All right, can you see a map there?
Yes, got the map.
This is just for helicopters. We also have one for fixed wing, but it's the same concept. Basically, the green helicopters are the federal assets available in California. The Huey pictures are the state assets in California. So earlier I referenced that we had the 10 helitack bases, and you can see that on the federal side, there's about 16 of those. And it's similar on the air base side with the fixed wing where we've got the 12 bases primarily, and then the Forest Service has about 6 bases. So what ended up happening for CAL FIRE back in the early 70s is they looked at California and where the potential for fires was and where they were occurring, and they basically put a bunch of pin sets on the map. And that's what drove a lot of our aircraft locations. And it was based on a 20-minute response time to have a suppression aircraft, either a tanker or a copter, over state lands, SRA, what we call state lands in California. And so that was the design behind the base locations then. That was prior to the Hueys receiving the Cobra motors, and then now having the S70Is, and also prior to having the turbine engines on the S2. So the original circumferences are still in place. However, the aircraft have gotten faster over the years now. And so really we don't have an issue getting anywhere in the state, over state lands to suppress a fire. Our agency's goal is to contain fires at 10 acres or less. And we do this effectively greater than 90% of the time. So how aircraft are dispatched off of this map in essence is it's not by agency, it's by where the fire location is. And if you have a fire's location, center of the map there, Columbia, then you would get either state or federal assets, whichever ones were closest at that point in time of the emergency would be dispatched to that fire to suppress it.
Okay. How do you man your aircraft? Are your rotorcraft typically single crewed, double crewed? What about the maintenance crews? And so I guess if you are staying within your sphere of influence, you may go home at night, but if you are deployed, then you might be up in a motel or a fire camp.
Yes, good question. So staffing at the fixed wing base level, it'll be the pilots, and they have to live, the contract pilots and mechanics, and they have to be within 45 minutes of that base as far as whether they're living or renting or whatever the scenario is, they have to be within 45 minutes to that location of their assignment. On the helicopter side, that's generally state employees, and they stay on duty at the base. And it's they'll work a shift, which is typically a 3 on, 4 off, 4 on, 3 off configuration. And the staffing on the copters is it'll be 1 pilot, 2 fire captains, and then 7 firefighters typically is what we stick around those numbers is what that package is. On the S-70I, it's a little different now. It's going to be 1 captain, 1 front seat pilot, and then a operational supervisor in the back, along with up to 9 crew members. For the fixed wing, though, it's just a single pilot in the tanker, and in the air attack is a single pilot with an air attack and a tandem configuration in the OV-10. For mechanics, every fixed wing base has a mechanic. The rotor wing bases that were Huey did not have a mechanic, other than 2 of them, Hemet Ryan in the south and Columbia, because they were a fixed wing and rotor wing base together. And so there was a mechanic signed there. Going forward with the transition of the S-70I, mechanics are assigned to all those bases. So we have been hiring mechanics with that background into the department now for over the last year and increasing those numbers in preparation of this deployment and rollout. All the maintenance for the aircraft is done back in Sacramento at the McClellan Park, at the McClellan Airport. We have a facility there that does all maintenance for all of our assets and that they cycle through on an annual and a scheduled basis.
Okay, you mentioned that your helicopters deploy with firefighters aboard. So do the aircraft get to the fire, they set down, deploy the ground crews, and then do they deploy a tank, or do they deploy a bucket to assist with firefighting efforts, or are they just aerial assets for intel?
Good question. The Hawks are all coming, the CAL FIRE Hawks are all coming tanked with a 1,000-gallon tank on them. The Hueys, we've only had several of them tanked, generally the ones in the southern region, the far south and up at Bear Valley, Alma. So not quite half would be tanked. The reason being is you start getting those higher elevations, right, in the heat, and the weight becomes an issue with trying to carry your crew. And then also the water sources sometimes don't allow you to get down with that tank. You need to go to a bucket configuration. But going forward with the Hawk, it's obviously faster. And so looking at the water sources and the availability we figured that we weren't losing anything that we already had gained with the Huey in terms of the capability of that aircraft traveling faster, further to get to a suitable dip site and then be able to pull more water back. It equaled out or became better in the numbers. So we don't really see any issue with keeping the tanks on the 70Is and not using a belly hook configuration there.
That makes sense. As long as you still have your map up, let's talk about how do you use contractors, aircraft, helicopters to support your aviation requirements? Are they the ones that might move around more often? Well, and how does the system seem to work for you now that fire season seems to be year round in California?
Well, the contractors, they're very much needed, and we couldn't do it without them, and it's a pleasure to have them. And so what typically we do is we run day-to-day business as you see off this map, but then as a fire becomes established and grows, we want to get our aircraft back onto their bases so that they can continue to fight those initial attack fires, keep fire small, and in essence, not have 2 big ones. and so on. So we hire contractors to come in and fill that void, as well as augment the aircraft request needed to suppress a fire. So typically we'll hire vendors and we'll put them at, in the case of helicopters, we'll put them at a incident helibase, and where they have a manager tied to them, and they are supported out of that helibase just as they would at a normal base of operations. There is times where we do hire them behind our aircraft at the bases, and we have several now doing such, where we will put them at one of our actual facilities, or if we have an area that does not have a facility but has a suitable area, we'll go ahead and staff that in addition to what you see on this map. So those 8 exclusive use helicopters I was talking about, in essence, you would see 8 additional places on this map where those would be homed this summer, even though we know they're probably going to be on the road going from fire to fire.
Okay. We had a question from Nikos Paparizos. Does CAL FIRE use night vision goggles? And has that help or hurt firefighting efforts? He says he believes it might be difficult to fly with goggles during fires because of obviously the fire flare.
Yeah, the goggles have been around for a while in the South with our cooperators out of Orange County, LA County. So it's nothing new. What's been the new transition is going from ground fill into hover fill operations has been one. And then also the hoist type of activities. So it's not new. For CAL FIRE, we have the folks in place within the agency that have the background and qualifications in the S70I. As far as that goes, what we're limited on is using goggles in the fire environment. And that's where we're reaching out to our cooperators. And we're also taking steps this summer to go out and test a series of goggles and see what's best, what's going to work best for us, and how we want to deploy those aircraft in that environment.
Okay. Is there any other new technology that CAL FIRE is using on fires this year, or maybe coming up with in the future?
There's a number of things when it comes to our intel program and aviation combined in terms of sensor capability in gaining intelligence on fire activity throughout the state and processing that and disseminating it back. The tools doing that, whether it's the aircraft or the drones, are that's all fairly new. In terms of the aircraft systems themselves, we're not adding additional systems onto the aircraft for the simple reason we need to. There's a lot of connectivity issues in the state that can't be resolved with just one switch of a device. So there's a number of folks working collectively together trying to figure out what that solution is. And so prior to cutting holes in the aircraft or adding systems onto the aircraft, there's a lot of work going on in the background to help with connectivity and or sensor deployment to see what's going to be best suit the agency, both cost-wise and ease of use without taking away from the aerial asset itself, meaning adding additional workload to those crews that are piloting those aircraft in the conditions that they fly in.
Okay, we had another question come in from Hermes Rengifo, and he's wanting to know if you ever hire international pilots. He says he meets all the other qualifications, but do you hire international pilots, or do they need to be a U.S. citizen or resident?
Good question. As far as on the helicopter side with CAL FIRE, as long as you meet the minimum qualifications, you can apply.
Okay, that's fantastic. Let's see, safety programs. You mentioned right now you've been having a really good safe year, a good safe season. If one of your pilots does see something or does something, how do you handle safety issues or safety matters during fire season?
The good thing is we've created that just culture and that safety culture where we've encouraged people to speak up and they're not punished for it or penalized by it. And so I would say overall, we're very good. I know in terms of the mechanics back within our maintenance facilities, they've received numerous awards on how they keep the aircraft safe. And then on the pilot side, it's a very pilot-friendly world when it comes to us, the interagency partners, and even our cooperators that come out that work together. And we take it seriously. If there is something that is unsafe, or we see a practice that is not standardized, or light has been showing onto a deficiency somewhere, then we go out and we abate that, whether it's an individual operating from not even from the pilot role, but in terms of like an airspace management role possibly, or even in the pilot realm, or just as within the conditions of the fire itself, then it's an easy enough thing to just speak up and it gets taken care of. There's also a group of folks, such as the TAO in the background and AMU, our departments that forecast these things going forward as well. And so whether it's putting out informational sheets, safety sheets, training, after action reviews, facilitated learning analysis, it's done quite routinely within the agency. And we are a subscriber to the SafeCom system, just like anybody else. And so a lot of the stuff is out there to see if folks want to go look at.
Okay, I had a question from somebody on staff. We know that there's normally a progression from firefighter up through different levels of management during in the fire system. Is there ever a progression system where a firefighter could become a mechanic or pilot for aircraft? Or are there other roles that a firefighter could do in aviation?
Yes, it's more common on the federal side of the house, where you see individuals that were hot shots, heliTAC crew members, and so on throughout their career, and then they went in, became a pilot, and then basically re-entered the program as like a lead plane, or they've gone into the contractor world where they've gone back as an exclusive use pilot on the federal side as well. So it's more common on that side, not as common on our side. But we do have people that are hired from a civilian background, not necessarily a firefighting background, to run maintenance and to oversee the operations at our aviation management unit. It's always a benefit to have some type of firefighting background, but it's not needed as far as the pilot goes.
Okay, quick mention to our audience, hey, this is a great chance for you to ask questions about firefighting operations in California, but you could probably extrapolate and consider these answers to be more national or international as well. So please, if you have questions, let us know. You mentioned UASs and drones a little bit. Is there still an issue with people flying drones around fire operations?
Yes, we had to limit or shut down operations on 2 fires this last week due to drone activity that was not a part of the incident itself. So typically, we've had over the years, we've had a number of incursions and activity. We've gotten a public safety message out there from all the interagency partners, which is, if you fly, we can't. And then the FAA has its rules and regulations that they're supposed to abide by. And we did see some benefit to that in recent years. I would say it's kind of either stalled out and or maybe gone back the opposite way, where we're having more incursions. And it could also be because we have so many agencies deploying assets now within their programs in support of the public that they don't understand the rules of when you fly or the training background needed to fly. And so it's come a challenge to actually identify what's a hobbyist drone or a bad actor versus somebody that's trying to act good, but just doesn't understand the process to get into the airspace over a wildland fire, because it's much different than when you take the wildland fire aspect out of it. And so we're still trying to do our best with educating both in the department and out of the department on what those programs are and how you get to the level of training that you need to be incorporated. And a lot of times it's just following the incident command structure on wanting to complete those missions. So there's avenues to do it. It's just folks are new coming to the table, wanting to use their tool, and they just need to be shown the right path to take to use that tool.
Okay, well, along the same lines, we got a question from Justin Perry, one of our viewers. It says, does CAL FIRE use UAS contractors? And if so, how could a company look at becoming a contractor for you?
We'll contract work. If you take it away from wildland fire, if you're looking at some of our resource management profiles, in a year-round capacity, yes, there is, or our technical service applications for like infrastructure. Yes, we will hire contractors to do basically 107 contractor work. When it comes to incidents, there's For small UAS, no, there's really no purpose for me right now to hire private contractors. One, there's a tremendous amount of training and input from the fire side that if it's not known and not understood, that it causes way more problems than the benefit that comes out of them. Meanwhile, our agency, my federal partners, are scaling their programs at a large rate right now, and we're putting our tools and resources into that void to fill it. And so it's meeting our need. It's only going to be growing stronger. We do use contractors with what we call type 1, type 2 UAS profiles, which are the larger aircraft that can fly at higher altitudes, like the FER 90 style. To get into that program, you have to be carded through the federal system to be on the vendor. And I believe they're in a year 4 or 5 of a 5-year contract, and carding should open up here coming in this next year, I believe, for folks to go ahead and try to get carded on that federal list. And that's the one that we would use to come back into the department to hire.
Okay, Jake. Well, I think that kind of wraps things up for us today. We normally ask our panelists if there is one thing that they would like the audience to remember from the webinar today. What might that be? And I don't know if there is anything in particular that you would like to point out, but please go ahead.
Well, first, be fire safe. It's a bad year, and be aware of what you're doing. You're out recreating and traveling along the highways. If you're pulling off in the grass, or if you're using something that could light a fire out in the field, be careful of that. If you have a home in the wildland, I highly recommend that you do your safety clearances around it, and that you follow the guidance on preparing for an evacuation, just to make things easy and less stressful. You look at the years past, there's a lot of that happening, and we want everybody to be safe. And the best way to protect your home is by having that clearance. And if you're asked to evacuate, for your friends and family, have them do such in an orderly way, so that we can ensure that we have every opportunity to catch a fire as quickly as possible without being hampered by clogged roads and/or having to divert to save lives over property.
Okay, hey, I do apologize. We did have one more quick question came in. He's actually got several, but I'm just going to focus on the key one. Are you using off-the-shelf drones, or is it something that's more specifically designed for your industry?
Yeah, we're using off-the-shelf drones primarily right now. Between me and my cooperators on the federal side, we're looking at industry to help provide tools that are better suited for what we're doing. There's not a lot out there that has come to that's been provided with the consistency in capability that's claimed. And so it's going to take a while for the industry to get scaled up. And now we're fighting the global supply chain issues and whatnot. So I think there's a lot of good people in the industry that can provide what we need. It's really comes down to, are they able to get the resources to make what they're able to make for us? And can they scale it to a level that we can actually take into the department in large numbers for the actual uses that we're looking for?
Okay, well, Jake, thank you so much for taking the time today to join us and to share your information with the rotorcraft community. We certainly appreciate it. We wish you the smallest, safest fire season that you might be able to have this year, and look forward to working with you in the future.
Hey, thanks, Dan. I appreciate it. Take care.
You betcha. And I'll get our housekeeping duties up here real quick. Coming up next week, save the date. Our webinars are always at 4 p.m. Eastern. That's UTC -4 right now. Watch for the links in the email, social media, and Rotor Daily. Next week is fatigue and maintenance duty cycle management. This does focus specifically during fire season. We do have some longer operational days, so the messages will always be useful, especially when the sun's shining on this side of the hemisphere or on the southern side. We have representatives from Silver Helicopters, an aviation attorney, Zaverman, Lekind, Bloomstein, and Blader, and Derek Lufty, who is the maintenance manager for flight test at GE Aviation, will be the lead presenter next week. Derek is also a member of the HAI Safety Committee, I believe, and so we look forward to that presentation. We do have a follow-up questionnaire coming to you shortly. We do ask that you take just a minute to answer our questions. We use the information you provide to us to come up with topics for future webinars, so please let us know what you'd like to see. If there's something that HAI can do to help you in any any other part of your operation, please let us know that too. The easiest way to do that is sending an email to Jim Viola at president@rotor.org with your challenges, your questions, your suggestions, your anything you can offer that you think will help us do a better job for the industry. We are here to serve our members primarily. If you're a member and you're having an issue with just about anything, we will do our best to help you out. And that does bring us to a close. Until next week, we do ask that you be safe, that you fly safe, and now that you be fire safe here in the Northern Hemisphere. Thank you for your time.